So tonight I'm going to share my story about my personal struggles with substance use and journey to recovery. And even more so this year, I'm getting asked to speak at special events like this one with Washington Goes Purple.
The police department and our fire department have been all in on our initiatives. Like with Washington Goes Purple, of course, that's for education and to try to prevent addiction in children and things like that.
We've got to move past reacting, and we got to move towards prevention and being progressively proactive in doing so. And that is a culture change, because those of us that have never used, that are not addicted, can't truly understand the impact of how do you stop that from happening, because they've never experienced it.
So for us, we're on the response end. We're going, the police, the fire department, EMS, we're going there, we're responding to the issue after the fact. Really what we need is proactive action. So again, why we're wearing the purple shirts, promoting the awareness of, hey, this is how people become addicted. The big push for Washington Goes Purple is educating the youth on what it started out as, how prescription drug can lead to opioid addiction.
One of the things that we do with Washington Goes Purple is, and this is sort of the preventive side. This is really a prevention to talk to the kids about the dangers of prescription pain medication, that people didn't understand that a prescription pain medication is heroin. Basically, it's synthetic heroin. And we weren't having these conversations with our children. And what we're seeing now is kids are using illicit pills.
Kids in the household, not overdose, but kids that are in that environment. That's because they don't have any control over it. It's their caretakers, their parents, whomever, and the toll that has on them, and they don't even realize it.
With finding a way to stop that my 6-year-old, from wanting to try something and go down that path. We don't train and work on parents to know that when that kid, that 17-year-old who's playing sports, gets hurt and has to be put on an opioid-related prescription drug to monitor and make sure that they don't get hooked on that, we are not going to stop this.
I think people just need to be kind and realize that this can happen to you. It can happen to me. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she knows more about drugs than probably most adults, because I've open and honest conversations with her. I would like to think my daughter's not going to use drugs because she was there when my best friend died from a heroin overdose and knows how devastated I was. I also live in the real world and understand that there's a possibility she could use drugs.
The way the drugs are coming into our community is that we're not too far from Baltimore City. And Baltimore has always been known as the heroin capital of the United States for many years. But it was a different kind of heroin back then, black tar heroin. And then when prescription opioids really became prominent, that's when we started seeing a change.
These drugs, which I repeat are our best, strongest pain medications, should be used much more than they are for patients in pain.
But it was first falsely marketed as non-addictive. You had these pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma, the Sackler family, making millions and billions of dollars off of this stuff. And during this time is when heroin made a big comeback.
Today, the city became the latest in a growing list of 200 communities nationwide, hoping to make pharmaceutical companies pay for the opioid crisis that kills more than 100 people every day.
We use the tragedy of an overdose death, as an opportunity. That opportunity to see where we can backtrack how this person got the heroin, where that drug trade started, so we can go after that distribution point and not the user to user kind of way.
Fentanyl has become so much more prevalent. So it changed the landscape of what's going on today. And that's those two things together, now more just strictly fentanyl, is the reason why you're seeing the overdose numbers keep going up and up and up.
As the primary first responder, we're all medically trained as EMTs. So when there's an overdose incident, so we can get there and provide all the life-saving treatments that they need, including Narcan administration, to bring them out of that overdose, prevent them from respiratory arrest or cardiac arrest.
Can you hear me?
Hey buddy, what's...
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, good.
Can you hear me?
You're all right. You're all right. Lay down for me.
Even just health challenges in general. We've had situations where someone wants to go to a rehab center, but they have open abscess on their arms from using, well, you have to treat the person's medical issues before they can even consider getting themselves sober.
The biggest impact we got here and where we're at right now is that there's a lack of resources. There's a lack of those places that we can get them into. When you can't get the money to buy the pills, or you can't get the pills anymore because they can't get them prescribed to you, and you can't steal enough of them from somebody else, you gotta get to that feeling you need to take care of. As an addict, you're gonna go to heroin. And now that heroin could be done in powder form and snorted, and you didn't have to inject, because everybody that I've ever met that's recovering and has been recovering, everyone to a T said they would never use a needle, never inject themselves. And the ones in recent history that could use the higher potency heroin that's now around compared to what it was 20 years ago.
When we look at the opioid crisis, I think everybody's been hit hard. And what we're finding out with other layers is that the obstacles aren't just the treatment obstacles. They're the housing, it's the food, it's the transportation, it's the medical needs, it's the undiagnosed or untreated mental health issues or diagnosis that they may have.
When we started this whole Washington Goes Purple thing, I said, why don't we do a walking take back? She said, what do you mean? I said, let's go door to door. Let's take the health department, let's take the fire department, let's take law enforcement, and take community members, and let's go door to door. And let's pick a community, let's pick a small area, let's go door to door, knock on the door, and ask, do you have any medications, unwanted medications you'd like to get rid of? We're here to do that. And it wasn't so much just to get the drugs, it was a way to start to have an engagement.
For us, it's about bringing more resources. And we have a great health department here that has a robust harm reduction program, which is great. It's very controversial. It was very controversial, especially here in Washington County, giving out clean syringes and things like that. But it works. We know it works. And our job as human beings is to keep people alive until they're ready to get help.
Kevin Simmers runs Brooks House, a center for women in recovery in Hagerstown. He has been a partner in Mayor Keller's crusade.
She's been at the forefront in the fight on addiction and the fight against opioids for her entire tenure in office.
Simmers says Keller knows the strengths and weaknesses of the current efforts to attack the addiction crisis.
She's all too aware of the lack of services available, the lack of treatment available. So she will be a voice for definitely the people that are not spoken for, and she'll be a voice for people that are suffering from this.
As far as individuals coming to Brooks House, it's very diverse. Now, this is a women's level of care, so we're seeing women from 18, 19 years old to late 50s or 60s struggling with many different substances, primarily opioid, substance use disorder, but alcohol, benzodiazepines, amphetamine or cocaine. We're also seeing a lot of women that are coming in here with significant issues of trauma, mental health, daily life skills. Maybe some of our women are coming from backgrounds where their parents were alcoholic or addict.
I can't blame my using on anybody but myself. It's something within me. I wanted to feel included. I wanted to fit in. And for me, fitting in was using drugs and alcohol at a very young age. And when I began to use heroin, I kept it undercover for a very long time. Heroin became the love of my life. It was number one. Nothing else could change that. I put heroin before my children. I put heroin before my family. I put heroin before myself.